Hello, hello. Welcome to ZPay's Artist Corner. Glad you tuned in. We have another topic. We also have another panel of guests. We have a very interesting topic today. Before I get started, I would like to let you know who we are. We are ZPays. We support the community of artists by using various platforms, and we focus on culture and diversity. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce my platform right here, my guest, starting with Miss Kai.
Hello, I'm Kai Pruitt. I am in education consulting, but I also model here in Nashville.
Hi, my name is Nija. I'm also known as Critique Moi. I do abstract expressionism and a meditation practitioner and therapeutic life art coaching.
Hi, I'm Xavier Payne, better known as X Payne. I'm a visual artist, painter, designer, illustrator, etc.
My name is John Thompson. I'm an educator. I'm a dean of social emotional learning.
All right. Thank you all for being here. The topic that we are getting into is called Blackfishing. And some may call it another name, appropriation. But is a title that the Urban Dictionary calls as another form of appropriation. So I'm going to read what the Urban Dictionary said. It said a trend commonly perpetuated by white women who use tanning and makeup to appear to have some types of Black African ancestry. So just touching on that, there are a lot of people out in the maybe celebrities on Instagram, just portraying themselves as being Black. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that can come to mind, like the Kardashians. That's one that comes to mind. Why is that something that is so popularized by non-Black people?
I mean, look at us.
So we look good.
Wouldn't want to be us. I mean, just being honest. I mean, if you really think about it, right? Everywhere in the country, I mean, not everywhere in the country, everywhere in the world has color to the skin, brown eyes, and Black hair. You know what I mean? And so because of that, everybody would want to be like the rest of the world. There's only those select group of people who don't have those specific features, whether what they look like, if they have rhythm or anything like that. They're the ones that don't have it. So they want to be like everybody else. They want to be Black, but don't want to be Black.
They want to be Black, but they don't want to be Black. So what does that mean? Like, you're saying portray a look, cop our fashion, cop our music, cop certain aspects of our culture. I can name like a few people that, do you guys know anybody like currently that's considered appropriating or blackfishing right now? Like currently, like on your Instagram, and I would say your Instagram page, you may not be friends with them, but while you scroll through TikTok, because TikTok got in trouble for that, that was they were using some of the dance moves and appropriating Black culture. And, John, like you said, it is something that, why not? Why not, because look at us. But what does that mean, look at us? What is something that we bring to the table? And this has been going on since, maybe I would say like the 1930s, 40s, 50s. Like, for instance, I learned about Betty Boop. And I remember growing up seeing the Betty Boop character and thinking she was white the whole time, whereas it was actually a young lady that was used as that, as her voice, as her whole look, basically copying what she did. And, and I think I learned that like last year. It's like in the 2000s that I learned about that. And then you look at somebody like the Kardashians who use that same look. A lot of BBLs like floating around here, so they use something like that. But that, to me, it's not only that kind of, to me, is a stereotype. But if you look at some of the music that we have, for instance, you have now James Brown is actually given the title of Father of Rock and Roll just now. And that has been always with Elvis Presley. We are actually like, if there's any like music that's given like kings or queens of something, it's always a Black person. So like, what is your experience just personally and even on like social media that you've seen where people are blackfishing or appropriating and where it has like infuriated you or made you feel like, well, darn, why, is it something that you saw as personally as a kind of a backlash to you as a Black person?
Yeah, especially working a lot in the fashion industry. So like there's appropriation, and then blackfishing is like literally portraying yourself as a black person. Like who was that? Rachel Dolezal? Yeah. Like that. Like it's really frustrating, especially the appropriation part is frustrating for the simple fact that things that I might consider a form of expression or a form of joy are ghetto because it's on me, right? Mm-hmm. But then let somebody else do it that's of a different background. It's trendy. It's cute. It's, acceptable. Like, for example, you probably can't see right now, but I've got purple hair, right? I could be considered, like, turned down from a job for that.
Right.
Or this is, braids, like, I'm wearing braids as a protective style, and you are putting it in your hair can't even hold it up, but like it's acceptable and it's trendy when you do it. Or I watch Black designers get their ideas stolen every day. And it'll be termed as, it's not high class because a Black person created it. But then it's on the runway immediately.
But what is ghetto?
And that's a whole nother discussion
The
too.
term ghetto, when I think of like ghetto, I think of like something that's from the hood. Mm-hmm. But then that's where the style actually came from.
And that's what I'm like. It's not, to me, it's not an insult, but it has such a negative connotation. But if you trace back every trend, everything that has been deemed as high fashion, you can 9 times out of 10 trace it back to an urban community. Mm-hmm. As someone who was just using their resources to create something creative, to find joy, to express themselves in a way. Mm-hmm. But because they're not of a certain status or class or ethnic background, it's not acceptable if they do it. But then it can be stolen and turned into high fashion and turned into, monetization. Like anybody else can take what we do and turn it into profit or a trend. But when we do it, the credit is never given, or it's always given after the fact, or even when somebody's gone. And that's the frustrating part about it. Like the intellectual property part, this is something that I literally just felt in my spirit, that it's my way of expressing myself, and somebody else can take it and turn it into like profit because they don't look like me. Yeah. That's the frustrating part about it.
Or if they copy you or it's more popularized, even if it's a white artist or a person that is not of color. So for instance, like in 2014, Rolling Stones had an interview with Macklemore. Mm-hmm. And y'all remember his song, I think it was Thrift Store? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he came out with that, and he actually won an award for that over Kendrick Lamar. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of floored. I was like, over Kendrick Lamar? Like Macklemore? But here's the thing. He never did actually take full credit for saying, yes, I should have actually been above him. Yeah, I deserve that award. He literally said, I'm white. I copied off of, this is not my culture. So therefore, really, that award really doesn't, he didn't necessarily say that award didn't belong to me, but basically, I understand it had to do with popularity. Mm-hmm. Me and him were kind of neck and neck with, fan base or people who enjoyed our music, whether it was the same audience or not. I got the Grammy, or I got the award just because, I was more popular. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Kendrick Lamar, as we all know, he has a little bit more substance than Macklemore. And, there's some artists that do not take that, they may appropriate the culture, but they know they're not Black. They don't own it. Mm-hmm. For instance, Rita Ora, she says, she said, I quote, like, people think I'm Black and that works in my benefit. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, well, when do we say, hey, you kind of get a Black card because you have somebody like Eminem? He's pretty much accepted. He's invited to the barbecue because why?
I hate that.
He grew up around Black people, and he's like one of the top white artists. So when do we, as like Black people, say, you know what? We know we popular. We know you can make money off of this. It's been happening for a long time. Fine. It's not, dehumanizing us like blackface, but now, it's cool. You make good music. All right. So when do we say that it's okay for that? Anybody?
I feel like
I say,
You can go ahead. And I
I was gonna go. You start because I was gonna go off topic. Go ahead and say that.
I mean, it's never appropriate. It's never going to be acceptable. There's no way it can't be acceptable.
Why not?
All right, so this is why, right? Let's use Eminem for an example, right? All right, so Eminem, he grew up in a 8 Mile, whatever. It's a bad little area and all this other type stuff. Eminem still has privileges that I don't have. And no matter you want to accept them or not, Eminem has privileges that I do not have. You know what I mean? The thing about appropriating black culture is you can be black until it's time for you to be white again. We can't do that as a black person. I can't do that. And so I'm not going to accept somebody so they can just join my culture because they like the things that I like. I'm not accepted into American culture. So I'm not about to just be all willy-nilly and accepting people of that standard just for that either. I'm not going to do that. Can't do it.
But where can you say that he has, like some people who are people of non-color, that they will say, well, I grew up, like you said, in the 8 Mile, I grew up in this neighborhood. I was around a lot of black people. Just being in New York and living in New York, there are a lot of Puerto Ricans and Italians that associate their culture with black culture.
Yeah.
No, they associate being poor around other poor people. They still have their own culture. So, I mean, you got there's more poor white folk out here than there's poor black people. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's just you're around that group of people that has doing something popular at the time. Being black is a trend. That's what being black is a trend. It
definitely is.
And so it's like, dang, I can be black right now. It's gonna give me like Rita Ward. I can be black right now. Cool, let me do that then. Macklemore, shoot, let me go around and think I want to be black real quick.
Something similar.
Naja, I want to hear what Naja has to say.
So for me, and I don't watch a lot of TV on social media, so I don't see a lot of that. Blackfishing and all that
ghetto.
stuff.
The earth is ghetto.
I don't see a lot of it. My experience growing up, I was like the only black girl in school, and my experience was actually great. All the white people would like treat me like this queen of the school because like I don't know. So I've always had good experiences, and the white people would copy me. They copied my styles, my hair. I had like Bantu knots. White girls came with Bantu knots, and it didn't make me. They did. My best friend, she had her hair knotted like me. And at the time, it didn't bother me.
Right.
My mother knew about it, and she didn't say anything. But it wasn't a bad experience. Like I never got treated negatively. Even as an adult, I still, like just yesterday, the lady was like, "You're glowing, your skin," like just going on and on about it. And we're at the racetrack, and we're like the only black people there. And like, so everyone joins in. Oh yeah, y'all glowing. Your family is so great. And so I'm just like, it didn't bother me for some reason, but some people it would.
Was there an underlining?
It did not bother me.
Was there an underlining of, say this like racism? Because I know being a teacher myself and being, having white teachers, I kind of look back. And I'm like, hold up.
Yeah, that's
Hold
fetish.
up.
It's definitely fetish.
Wait a minute, you were kind of fetishing off of my little hairstyle, and sometimes even being put in a category. Do you feel like, looking back now that you're an adult, do you feel like, they were a little bit fetishing?
I'm sure their parents were telling them things because they would come and say, my mother doesn't like black people. Like they would tell me this all the time. You can't come over because you're black. But I want you to because I want them to see this. I want them to, it was just really weird things as an adult. And I'm like, my mom probably should have known a little bit more about what they were saying to me at school. But yeah, I definitely know that they went home and tried these hairstyles and their parents probably snatched out of their hair. But they came to school happy to learn more from me. So, hey, whatever.
Yeah, I have so my experience was similar. I was in mostly white schools, and it was always uncomfortable for me because I felt like I was being put on display for their entertainment all the time. I felt like a fetish. So for me, I am not a fan of giving out black cards. I ain't a fan of inviting people to the cookout. I'm just not. And the reason why, I have some friends who were white that grew up in mostly like black areas, black culture. That was their experience. I'm never going to take away from your experience. However, kind of like what you said earlier, there are just certain experiences, even though you grew up around black people, that you will never have to experience.
Yeah.
There are conversations you are not going to have with your children. There are things that you are not going to be judged for that are a part of our culture. It's going to be a trend if you do it. It's going to be cool if you do it. Whereas I could be penalized for doing it.
Right.
And so you can be an ally, but no, you don't get to claim the culture at any point in time. You can respect it. You can have an appreciation for it. You can be an ally and help other people understand certain things maybe, but you don't get to claim the culture. I don't care if you were raised around it.
Not out.
I don't give out.
You know, we cool, but you can't come to
Yeah,
our
I
barbecue.
don't give out
Have you
invites.
ever received an invite card?
I haven't. I'm gonna be honest with you, but a lot of times it's not like a formal invite. It's like, wow, you're the black girl. I actually had an invite to a party. One of my coworkers that was white. And it's so weird because it was a hesitancy. Because for some reason, as black people, we are aware of us being in the room when we're the only one in the room. We're kind of just aware of like them, you know, and maybe it's me, you know, you're looking at me. It's like, there's a black girl here, you know, and I don't know how they feel around us, but it's kind of like, okay, I mean, I'm not going to change and be different for anybody else and not act black, whatever that is. But I'm always going to be like, knowing that I'm the black girl in the room. And knowing that there's going to be, like you said, that fetish. Like, oh, I love your hair, you know. And if I do respond, it's always a reach for the hair. And so I was kind of a little hesitant to go. So I just, wished her happy birthday. Hey, I'll cash app you, that kind of thing. And again, that might have been on me. You know what I'm saying? Not to go. But have you had an invite?
Yeah, I'm talking about an invite to white culture.
Yeah. Okay.
We've been invited to some things. I'm talking about.
What would
You
they
talking
invite
about
us
getting
to?
out
What
black
would they
card?
That's
But see,
what I'm
okay,
wondering.
so like this,
we
for
in it,
example,
ain't we?
I love skiing and I love Paramore and I love Maroon 5, but I don't see them jumping in my face like, oh my gosh, you love to ski. I just want to hang out with you all the time.
That's true.
They don't do that to us.
That's
So
true.
why are we so quick to like invite people into our cultures when other cultures protect themselves so much, right?
They do protect
like, You look at
themselves.
like
It's our nature.
Yeah, like you look at like Chinatown, right? The concept around how they protect their culture and really sew into each other is totally different. And they're not just walking around inviting people into their culture.
No, they're
You
not.
look at Jewish communities, they're not doing that. And it's not to say that we don't accept and respect and love everyone, but why are we so
We're
quick
loving.
But we can be loving
can love you
without
from a
I feel like it's
exploiting
I feel
our own
like it's-
culture. Like I ain't gotta invite all
I don't
y'all
have
into
to-
I feel
my
like it's the
culture.
nature of a black person to want to instinctively make people comfortable, or not even make people comfortable, but embracing people.
I look at it as
a
assimilation.
caregiving thing.
You think
Yeah.
so?
I don't know.
No, I agree with that one because like, even like they've done experiments on rats, right? And this is why I'm gonna bring this up. They've done experiments on rats before, and so they had the mom in the little cage and had a peppermint inside, and every time the rat would go to the peppermint, they would shock the rat, right? And then so when the rat ended up having a baby, they did the same thing with the baby and put the peppermint in there first time. The baby never went and got the peppermint. Never did it because it was already inside their system. And so all I'm saying is this. If we've been assimilated into America a certain type of way after Reconstruction and all this other type stuff, then yeah, that's when it's going to come out look a little crazy. It sounds like assimilation because we're trying to fall into something with them instead of being
But
ourselves.
I think every culture tries to assimilate. I live around East Indians, and I noticed that East Indians. I live in Franklin, and it's predominantly a white community. And I noticed when I went to get a henna tattoo, and me and the young lady had a conversation about schools and different things like that. And I noticed that majority of a lot of East Indians were in my neighborhood and in this neighborhood where this young lady was. And I don't notice them in North Nashville, which is a predominantly black, community. I don't notice them in Antioch. None of the predominantly black communities. And I'm wondering why. And as you know, like East Indians have it's not as practiced as much, but they have a caste system where it's very classist. And if you're not familiar with it, it's basically this is the top, this is the creme de la creme, and this is what you do. This is the education you receive, and this is where you live. So it's like, and then you have some Hispanics where they don't want to be recognized as Hispanic. They don't actually practice their language in front of white people. I've literally seen it, and I only seen it because I have cousins that are Hispanic. They're Afro-Latino and Latina, but they don't really, matter of fact, it's a shot when they are Hispanic. It's like, how are you? So they hide it. So it's kind of like I think that every culture in some ways assimilates to the white culture because that's been fit as like the norm. As far as Black people is concerned, I think as this day and age, we try to break out of that factor of we have to look a certain way.
Right.
You know, there's more things that are representation of Black culture, and we've been putting on the forefront the African diaspora because we want to be recognized as a culture that is, you know, that's been prominent throughout history, no matter what. Historically, you know, people been copying our style. So it's kind of like cultures do try to assimilate. The other cultures do, but we are the ones that they copy the most. So we are the ones actually fighting that battle for that respect.
And I think that's where
assimilate in this country though. They don't do it in any other country.
Yeah, I would say I think that's where I was going with that. Like when I say assimilation, every culture is going to have to assimilate because that's just the way Western society is, right?
Right.
But when I say assimilation, I think there's this need that our people, that we have a lot to like prove our worth. And so the reason every culture assimilates, but a lot of cultures have certain things that they protect and they are not going to openly share with everyone. Whereas we, in the need to prove our worth, are so giving and so free with sharing all aspects of our culture because we don't realize that's what we're doing
anyway.
Yeah, like we don't have anything to like claim. So we're so willing to give and say like, hey, like we're creating these cool things, we do these things. And I think to a certain extent, we have to be a little bit more protective. Like, we're not meaning to harm ourselves, but in the long run, like we give too much access with these Black cards that makes it easier for people to feel comfortable just taking our intellectual property. Yeah. And so that's more of the angle that I'm looking at it from. Like, it's okay to share certain things. That's just natural with cultures. Like, I think sharing certain aspects of culture is important for us to have a respect and understanding of each other as people. Mm-hmm. But there are certain things that like I look at other cultures and they are protective. And it is just, in a sense, I have to be understanding that like we have been trying to create certain traditions since a lot of things have been taken from us. Mm-hmm. So in the process of creating these traditions for ourselves and trying to have something to hold on to, it's easy to just say like, look at this, we're doing this and we're trying to just spread the joy that we're finding from these things. But to a certain sense, when people are profiting off of like everything that becomes a trend actually is a product of our actual experiences. Yes, so I don't like the fact that people get to profit off of our experiences, and you will never, ever have the experience that I have.
I think the conversations definitely need to be had more because, like I said, my experience was a little different. So I've never even thought of it in that light of that we're sharing too much, but I could see how, because I'm cool with telling anybody anything when it comes to like wanting advice. I don't ever think nothing about it. Mm-hmm. And so I definitely think that just the awareness is definitely needed when it comes to those type of things.
It's so ingrained in our culture that it's very reasonable for you to not see it. Like, it's very understandable for anybody to not see so many things. Mm-hmm. At the same time, like I look at, I didn't say much, I'm sorry guys. I look at Blackfishing as it's a sophisticated and updated form of blackface mixed with fetishism. Mm-hmm. Like, this is how racism evolves. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I have to disagree with you guys a little bit because Eminem is like, he's important in a hip hop world, but it's also like he's an individual, he's an ally who, I mean, I think every Black person knows Eminem can't say the N-word. So it's like there's a line that he knows he can't cross, and a lot of people know that they can't cross, and they have a respect for our culture because they know they can't cross certain lines. But he also actively employs Black people. Like it's he's got so many Black people around him, and you can look at that one way, as a borderline exploitative thing. But it's also like how many careers have been made. It's hard because it's like, and then like people are toxic, and it's a lot of like, just, we're not in a vacuum. It's a lot of stuff going on. But I think, and I have my own vices. Like I listened to Riff Raff like at one point, and I listened to like it is like there's kids who are into Ariana Grande, and you know I just kind of became hip to her whole kind of career trajectory. Was like that's a person who I would say like no, you need to go somewhere because it's like. If you're not actively contributing to our culture, like we live in a world that's revolves around money. So I feel like if you're actively contributing to that culture with money, with people, with time, with power, with energy, I think you should be like an 18-year-old in a 21 and up party. Like you should know the limits of like what you can do and can't do.
Yeah, what you can't do, the rules.
So,
read the rules before you come into the party.
Don't come in and drink, whatever you want, mixed drinks and all this. Like, understand what you're doing, where you're at. So, but walk lightly kind of thing, because we all live in this thing together. Yeah. My partner brings up a good point that I love so much, that she says that, this is, so many people bring up the fact that we're like in a pot. Like everybody's mixing together, and I don't know where she got this from, but it's like that's not how things should be. It should be more like a salad, where we're solid in our own identities, but we're all mixing together.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of taking and borrowing. I borrow from Asian culture in my own work, and I grew up on Dragon Ball Z and and anime, so there's like a history to that. So I think if there's a history, there's some validation to be had there, but it's very, you got to walk lightly. Like these guys like understand, you are privileged, I mean? You don't have the experience that I have, So it's like, understand that. But I think that there are people who do understand that, black, white and non-white, who are not black,
Even like the what you just said, right? You ain't got no Asian card, do you?
I mean...
I remember just being. Do you
what
have
does that mean,
card?
though?
What I'm saying is, you're talking about black cards and stuff like that, right? You can appreciate the culture.
Well, I don't believe in cards. I'm not going to give you a black card.
You don't have an Asian card. We're not going to just give out a black card.
But what does that mean, though? Like, if I walk into an Asian place, is everybody like I don't know what that means.
So we talking about a black card, right? Accepting somebody into our culture as if they were one of us, correct?
Yeah.
So I mean, it'd be the same thing. No. So you can appreciate the culture, you can eat their food, you can go to the establishment and they know who you are, but it doesn't mean that you're Asian. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So and that's what we're talking about with the card piece. Like, even me as a Greek, when I see white people try to join the frat, I'm like, yo, what you doing? I know why we came up with these organizations, and I don't care if my frat or not. I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask you a way more questions I'm gonna ask a black person.
But what?
Because I'm not gonna lie, because I don't think it's accepted. Because the reasons why we have fraternities, sororities was because of that black experience that white people don't have.
Well, I think X-Pain really, thank you all for your contribution. I think we had a really interesting topic, a lot of information, a lot of opinions and things that really stuck. And just wanted to touch back on what X-Pain said. It's knowing that boundary, knowing that, hey, I really do feel like Black culture will always be popularized no matter what till eternity. But I do feel like if artists, celebrities are going to use it, which they will, have a respect for that level where you're not using the N-word. You're respecting the culture, knowing where your boundaries is, reading the directions before you step into the room. Because like you said, we all are like a salad, got our own little distinctiveness and everything. So we're going to end right here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you click on subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us out on Buzzsprout. Thank you for another Z-Pace Artist Corner. Peace.
Inside of my brain. One day I'ma quit this day job.